Well, I bring you greetings from northeastern Michigan. My name, as Mark said, is Eric Cardwell, proud principal of the Besser Elementary Bulldogs. I currently serve as the Zone 6 Director and represent the states of Iowa, Michigan, and Wisconsin. It is with great enthusiasm that I am running for Vice President of NAESP. I want to thank each of you for the work that you do every day on behalf of America's school children. The work you do matters, and at any given moment can impact the lives of children and families in ways that you may not immediately realize. I passionately believe in the educational system that serves the students of the United States. Our nation's commitment to educational opportunity for all students has provided an unparalleled foundation that has in turn fueled one of the most prosperous countries in the world. Because of this idea, it's imperative that we become advocates for the needs of the greater educational community. Dynamics of the principalship have expanded tremendously over the past decade as our profession has tried to meet the increased student learning standards. Looking forward, my personal goals for NAESP hold three key components: membership, political advocacy, and high-touch collaboration. For the continued success of NAESP, it is essential that we promote membership. And an expansion can only be accomplished through a thorough understanding of our membership demographics and by addressing the specific needs of the ever-changing role of the principal. This will require our organization to continue to examine data of principals new to the profession. We cannot afford to put new principals behind the wheel of our aging car. NAESP needs to continue evolving in order to provide relevance for membership growth. In regard to political advocacy, NAESP seeks to create the correct message and set of solutions rather than having a solution foisted upon us. It is necessary that we continue and extend our collaborative relationships with our legislators. Principals from across the United States need to provide real-world input to educational reform and be recognized as the experts in the field. Too often, knee-jerk legislation is passed without the consultation of various educational groups. We need to change this in Washington, D.C. through expanded advocacy. I believe the Vice President of NAESP needs to provide a highly interactive and collaborative relationship with not only the governing board and NAESP office, but also with the state affiliates. While President of Michigan, I traveled in excess of 40,000 miles representing the Michigan Elementary and Middle School Principals Association. I believe it's critical that the association be in the field gaining perspective in order to govern effectively. You know, unequivocally, the best professional decision I've made in my 22-year career was to join MEMSPA and NAESP. They have provided a host of best practices and peer resources throughout my career as a principal. I am indebted and I attribute my success as an instructional leader to their support. And we need to reach out to members and non-members and show them the relevance that NAESP can have on not only them, but the children in their schools. The National Association of Elementary School Principals has worked tirelessly to these ends, and I feel that my experience with NAESP as Zone 6 Director, coupled with my leadership ability within the state level, will allow me to successfully tell the story, our story, of our profession and the successes and challenges we face on a daily basis. It would be my distinct honor to represent you as NAESP's Vice President. And I will end today's statement as it began. The work you do matters, and at any given moment you can impact the lives of children and families in ways that you might not immediately identify. If you came into my office, you'd see two papers on my bulletin board. The blue sheet is a point of pride, and this is how I end my Fridays, by making phone calls to parents. I had a student that had dropped their books, and another student picked them up, and I decided I would call the father. So I made the call home and had a delightful conversation with the father. 2 weeks later, I received this message from the mother, and it says, "Mr. Cardwell, anytime we've been out somewhere, whether at church or a restaurant or wherever, people have always complimented us on how well behaved our children are. After my husband was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in late July, we had many meaningful talks. He wasn't afraid, but he always expressed that his only regret was that he would not be here to raise our children. Anytime he expressed this, I always tried to reaffirm to him that he had already given the kids a strong foundation. The foundation was there, and my job going forward would be to build upon it. I told him our children would be okay because of the work we'd already put in. Mr. Cardwell, I'd like you to know that about a week before he died, my husband answered the phone one day, and you were on the other end, just calling to say what a wonderful job Wyatt was doing in school and asking us to keep up the good work. Tom was proud to receive the call that day, and it only reaffirmed what we already knew. For this, I thank you. Test scores are important, but they're not the only litmus test of a successful school. It begins with the relationships that we have with children, parents, and staff. And on any given day, you have no idea the impact that you have. Thank you for all you do for the United States children. Thank you. If I could change one thing in the American education, many topics that have already been brought up have come to mind. Like universal access to early childhood education. We have high stakes testing that's going on, expanded mental health care for our students, teacher evaluations, and obviously equitable funding. But I want to take a step back from those specific items. I went to a home to visit a parent of a child that we had at school that had some severe behavior problems. The mother brought me inside, sat me at the table, and we had a great discussion. But halfway through that discussion, a little toddler that was sitting next to us pulled themselves up, had a diaper on, and teetered towards the refrigerator. And that child was obviously hungry. The mom went over, opened the door to the refrigerator, and there was ketchup, mustard, and a gallon of milk. So to answer the question, what would I change in the American educational system, I would respond with one word: poverty. The Washington Post reported last month that for the first time in 50 years, over 50% of our children are economically disadvantaged, free and reduced lunch. This is a crippling statistic, you guys, as many of our children come to school hungry and cold without many of their basic necessities being met. The Program for International Student Assessment, PISA, ranked Finland, as you know, near the top of the scoring in the areas of math, science, and reading, while the United States was dead in the middle. The difference: Finland's child poverty rate is 5%. The United States is almost 5 times that. So if you take the United States testing data even a step further, and you take the test scores from the United States, the schools that had less than 20% poverty, we beat Finland. In fact, we beat every country in the world. So educational reform, we need to always look at ways to increase student achievement. However, it's clearly evident to me that as a nation, we need to acknowledge the elephant in the room, and that poverty does impact educational performance. And we need to declare, like Lyndon B. Johnson did, a war on poverty.
Thank you, Eric.
Mark, that's an excellent question. I think that we've already covered many of those pieces. I think it's really acknowledging that there's a continuum for our profession. You saw the graphic that Gail shared just a few minutes ago in regard to that group that's five years and younger. We need to support them, because the sad truth is 40% of those principals will give up the profession. And so in Principal Magazine, one of the things that it spoke about was talking about why they left. There's school cultural issues, workload, there's a bureaucracy, student discipline, parents. And so when we need to look at those items, and we need to look at what we can do as an association to support them. Obviously, I think the new principal panel is the first step in that direction. I think that's powerful, and I think that like the pre-K through 3 report is vitally important for principals in the field, but it's also vitally important as it helps to shape educational policy here in D.C.